Philip Birdsong, Anchors Away. Anchors Away, Philip Birdsong.
November 11th, every Veterans Day, I think I share with everybody, all the restaurants go and open their doors to give us free food. I'm a veteran. I never told you how I became a veteran. Interesting story, but true. Back in the late 70s, I found myself in a courtroom. I was about to get in some trouble, and a judge by the name of Ben Bukowski called me into his chamber and gave me a choice. Before I left the courtroom, I could either get an orange jumpsuit and have that uniform, or I could have a military uniform. I chose the military uniform. Right there in the judge's chambers was a recruiter. I got sworn in. 2 days later, I was on my way, gone. I was sent to the only aircraft carrier home ported overseas, which meant never came back to the States. USS Midway, 7,200 people on board the aircraft carrier. Now, follow me as we venture into what this looks like. 7,200 people means there are different groups or different tribes. The older sailors were known as sand crabs. Younger sailors were known as squids. So there were those tribes. Then we had divisions. Then we had Marines versus sailors. Then we had people who worked on top of the flight deck and people who worked below the flight deck. So each tribe had its own segment. It's almost like if you go into a school cafeteria these days and you see how the cafeteria is divided. You have jocks, you have nerds, you have black, you have white, you have Asian. Each group protective of its own tribe. But like a quilt, each little patch has its own entity, but their strength when they all come together. On July 29th, 1980, Midway had a collision with a Panamanian merchant ship. The merchant ship hit the Midway. The museum is in San Diego. We still have a moratorium. 2 of the sailors got killed. 3 of the sailors, unfortunately, were injured. The crash occurred at one of the most pivotal pieces on the ship. It's known as the LOX plant, liquid oxygen, very toxic. I had a reputation on the ship. Of all the 7,200 people, there's something that made me stand out. Can anyone guess?
Humor.
What?
Humor.
Humor? Yeah, it was pretty humorous. I happened to be the shortest person on the ship. The smallest. They needed to put somebody on a crane to lower them down 7 decks to seal a hatch. Who do you think they came for?
You.
Very, very true. Let me share with you some of the colloquialisms of shipboard life. We have what was known as a mess deck. And that means that's the place where people go to eat. Think about it. Mess deck. Kind of tells you about the quality of food you're going to get. Then, what I really liked was, unlike the other branches of the military, on the ship, when you're at sea, you don't have to salute the officers. Only on the ship. And you don't have to keep your uniforms on. If ever you've seen any of the old movies, you're allowed to take your shirt off. You can function in your t-shirt, or if you want to, you can even go bare-chested. On Liberty, what I used to do was, I had my hair so that it made regulations only because I had a stocking. And I could pack my hair down when I was at work. But when it came time for Liberty, I would take my stocking off and blow my afro out. So I felt like I was a civilian. But what I did learn in the military was not just the esprit de corps and the camaraderie, I learned how important it really was to share our gifts with other people. People who sometimes didn't look like me, didn't sound like me, didn't come from my part of the country, but we shared. But many of us struggle today with the gifts that we share, what we bring, how we can help others. Somehow I figured there has to be more to life than just going to work every day, paying bills, and really not making a contribution, really not sharing. All of us, no matter how big or how small we are, really have something to share with your group, to share with your tribe, to share with your world. What you should think about is how much of the treasure that you have are you sharing? You see, it could be something minute, something small, something that you do that nobody else can do. Maybe it's the way you prepare a meal. Maybe it's the way you sing. Maybe it's the way you cut hair. Maybe it's the way you color hair. But you have a gift. You have a treasure. You owe the rest of the world to develop that treasure and share it with the world. We all know in the cemetery there are thousands of remedies, cures, businesses that haven't opened, books that haven't read, because no one shared them. They didn't have the opportunity to share them. You see, it doesn't matter how big you are or how small you are. It's not about what you've done compared to what others done. What it is about is what you do or what you've done compared to what you should have or could have done during the time you're here on this earth. So, fellow Toastmasters, I say to you, that treasure inside you, cultivate, share, spread, inspire, empower others. And Petty Officer Bird's song is watching.
Right.